Listen, sometimes the loudest move you can make is no move at all. When the energy is off, when the space you stand in starts poisoning your spirit, words won't fix it, arguments won't fix it. Silence becomes your shield and distance becomes your power. That's not weakness, that's strategy. Tonight, I want to break this down. 6 truths about why silence is the best answer when you find yourself caught in a toxic relationship. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is protection. It's like armor you wear when the world tries to pull you into battles that don't serve you. And in toxic relationships, whether that's with a partner, a family member, a friend, or even the circle you thought had your back, silence becomes your greatest tool, because every argument is an invitation to spill your energy. And let's be real, in those spaces, the game is rigged. They don't argue to grow. They don't argue to find truth. They argue to control. They argue to dominate. They argue to throw you off balance. And if you accept that invitation, every single time you end up drained, you end up tired, and you end up questioning yourself more than you should. Think about it like this. Your energy is currency. It's the most valuable currency you got. Money comes and goes, but once your energy is gone, it's gone for the day. You can't swipe your card and get more. You can't buy it back. And arguments in a toxic relationship are like scams. They're designed to rob you without you even realizing it. They pull you in, they keep you locked, and when it's over, you empty. That's why silence is power. Because silence is you saying, I'm not giving you what you came to take from me. Picture this. Your phone's on 10%. We've all been there. Battery's red, charger nowhere near. What's the first thing you do? You close every app that's wasting power. You dim the screen, you put that phone on low power mode. Because you know if you keep scrolling, keep playing music, keep running apps you don't need, that battery's dead in minutes. And when your phone dies, you're cut off. Can't call, can't text, can't navigate, can't do nothing. So you protect it, you save it for what matters. Maybe the GPS to get you home, maybe that one important call. You preserve it because you understand how valuable it is. Now take that same logic and apply it to your spirit. When you argue with toxic people, it's like keeping Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and games running all at once on 10%. You done before you even know it. You wonder why you feel so exhausted, why your mood's heavy, why you can't focus on your goals. It's because your energy got stolen by arguments that didn't deserve your voice. Silence is the low power mode for your soul. Silence is you closing those apps. Silence is you saying, I need this energy for something bigger. Let me give you a real life picture. I knew someone who was always battling with their partner. Every day was a fight. Over little things, big things, imaginary things, it didn't matter. And every time they felt like they had to defend themselves. They had to explain, justify, argue back, prove their worth. At the end of the day, they'd sit there exhausted, drained, and broken. I told them, what happens if you stop playing their game? What happens if you just don't respond? At first, they thought silence meant losing. They thought it meant letting the other person win. But when they tried it, when they chose silence instead of another round of yelling, the power shifted. The toxic energy had nowhere to go. And slowly, they realized that by protecting their energy, they were protecting their sanity. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. Silence doesn't mean you're weak. Silence means you value yourself too much to waste your words on someone who doesn't deserve them. And the truth is, the people who try to drag you into toxic arguments, they feed off your reaction. That's their fuel. When you stay silent, you cut the supply line. It's like trying to start a fire without oxygen. It just burns out. Your silence suffocates the chaos. And let me tell you something else. The energy you save by staying silent, you can invest in your growth. You can pour it into your craft, your health, your goals, your peace. Every argument avoided is hours of mental space gained. Hours you can use to build. Hours you can use to heal. Hours you can use to find clarity. Think about the last time you argued with someone toxic. Did you feel motivated after? Did you feel inspired? Did you feel clear-headed? No, you felt drained, maybe even guilty, maybe even doubting yourself. That's the cost. Silence takes that cost away. Silence gives you a profit instead of a debt. Sometimes we think fighting back is the only way to prove our strength, but real strength is knowing when not to swing. Real strength is discipline. You don't have to fight every battle. You only fight the ones worth fighting. If somebody tries to pull you into nonsense every single day, silence is your way of saying, this fight is not worth my energy. That's wisdom. That's maturity. That's growth. And I'll tell you this, silence is not forever. Silence is strategic. You're not silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because what you want to say deserves a better stage, a better moment, a better audience. You're silent because you know your voice is valuable and you're not just going to throw it away like loose change. You're silent because you understand that one day your actions, your growth, your success will speak louder than any argument ever could. Look, when people try to pull you into toxic arguments, they want you in the mud with them. They want you dirty, frustrated, and distracted, but silence keeps you clean. Silence keeps you above it. Silence is like walking away from a street fight when you know the cops are already around the corner. You understand the consequences aren't worth it. That's intelligent. And the more you practice silence, the more you'll feel it protecting you. At first, it's hard. At first, you'll want to answer back, clap back, defend yourself. That urge will scream at you, but the moment you hold it in, the moment you choose not to respond, you'll feel a peace that arguments never gave you. That peace is priceless. That peace is you preserving your spiritual battery. So understand this. Silence is not about shutting down. It's about leveling up. It's about saving your energy for the things that really matter. It's about saying, my spirit is too valuable to be wasted on chaos. And when you start moving like that, you'll see the difference in your life. You'll have more energy for your goals, more energy for your passions, more energy for yourself. Silence protects your energy. And your energy, that's the foundation of everything you're building. Guard it, respect it, don't waste it. You ever notice how the loudest person in the room usually got the least to say? All that yelling, all that noise, all that pointing fingers, 9 times out of 10 is covering up emptiness. And when you stop responding to that energy, when you sit still and let them talk, their own words become their downfall. Silence got a way of exposing what noise tries to hide. Think about it. You ever seen somebody arguing with themselves in public? Maybe at the store, maybe at work, maybe even in the house. One person is going off, talking, yelling, throwing insults, and the other just standing there calm, unbothered. Who looks wild? It's not the quiet one. It's the person unraveling in front of everybody. And that's what happens in toxic relationship. The minute you stop feeding the drama, the minute you take away the back and forth, the dysfunction puts itself on display. You don't even got to open your mouth. The chaos tells the whole story. It's like holding up a mirror without saying a word. You don't need to explain. You don't need to defend. You don't need to justify. Just reflect back what they're given and let the silence do the work. People reveal themselves when you stop talking. It's easy to play victim when you're going back and forth, easy to flip the script, easy to twist words. But when there's no words for them to twist, when you're not adding fuel to the fire, all that's left is their noise. And eventually people see the truth. Let me give you something real. A brother I know used to go through it with his girl. Every time they argued, it turned into a marathon fight. 2-3 hours of going in circles, dragging up old wounds, digging deeper holes. And at the end, nothing was fixed. He told me one day, man, it's like we argue just to argue. I told him, try silence. The next time she tried to bait him into a fight, he just listened, nodded, and stayed quiet. Didn't defend himself, didn't attack back. At first, she got louder, angrier because she was used to that back and forth. But after a while, she realized she was in the room yelling at herself. The mirror was up and the reflection wasn't pretty. And you know what? That was the first step for him to break free from the cycle, not by fighting harder, but by not fighting at all. Silence is powerful because it creates contrast. Noise loves company. It needs another voice to survive. Like an echo in a canyon, if you shout, the canyon shouts back. But if the canyon stays still, your voice just fades out. Toxic people need that echo. They need your reaction, your words, your energy bouncing back. Silence is you cutting the echo off. And when that noise doesn't bounce back, it sounds empty. There's even science behind this. Psychologists call it extinction. When you stop rewarding negative behavior, the behavior eventually dies down. Arguments are a reward for toxic people. They thrive on reaction, your anger, your frustration, your defense. All of it feeds them. But when you starve the behavior with silence, you take away the reward. And slowly but surely, it loses its power over you. Now, don't get me wrong, choosing silence ain't easy. We're wired to defend ourselves, to prove our point, to make sure we're understood. And when someone's attacking your character, spreading lies, twisting your truth, everything in you wants to clap back. But the reality is, words don't always clear the air. They often make it messier. Silence, though, silence is clean. Silence leaves no fingerprints. Silence leaves them with nothing to hold against you. And people notice silence. They might not admit it, but they feel it. It unsettles them because silence is strength they can't measure. Most folks know how to handle anger. They know how to fight, how to argue, how to push buttons. But silence throws them off. It's like showing up to a boxing match and realizing the other person won't step in the ring. You swing at air long enough, you look like a fool. Let me tell you another story. I once watched two coworkers in an office go at it. One was always trying to bait the other, throwing little slick comments, trying to start something. And one day, the one being targeted just sat there, didn't reply, didn't flinch, didn't even change expression. The other one kept pushing, getting louder, trying to get a rise. But all that happened was everybody else in the room started side-eyeing the loud one. The silence spoke volumes. Without saying a word, the quiet one showed strength, showed control, showed maturity, and the loud one exposed their own insecurity. That's what silence does. It makes the truth undeniable without you having to waste a single syllable. And here's the thing, silence doesn't just expose them, it elevates you. It shows you've mastered yourself. Anybody can react, anybody can argue, but not everybody can stay grounded in the middle of chaos. Silence shows you got discipline, and discipline is rare. Discipline is respect for yourself. It says, I don't need to explain myself to prove my worth. I don't need to argue to stand tall. I am solid without saying a word. That's the kind of energy people remember. Silence is also timeless. Words get twisted, memories fade, stories change. But silence can't be misquoted. Silence stays pure. Years from now, nobody will remember what argument was about, but they'll remember how you carried yourself. They'll remember how you didn't let someone drag you into the mud, and that memory will outlast all the noise. See, noise is temporary. It rises fast, it burns hot, and then it dies out. But silence, it lingers. It makes people think. It makes people question themselves. It echoes in ways words can't. That's why silence speaks louder than noise, because while noise tries to distract, silence forces reflection. It forces people to face their own dysfunction, their own chaos, their own truth. But the next time someone tries to bait you, remember that. Remember the image of somebody arguing with themselves in public, because that's what it looks like when you don't engage. You're not losing a fight. You're showing them there was never a fight to begin with. You're not giving them the stage. You're not giving them your energy. You're not giving them your peace. And in the end, your silence will tell the story better than your words ever could. When you're caught up in something toxic, the lines between real and fake get blurry. You start doubting yourself, questioning your value, wonder if maybe you the problem, maybe you overreacting, maybe you asking for too much. That's what toxicity does. It scrambles the truth until you don't know what's solid anymore. It's like driving in heavy fog. You can't see the lane lines, can't see what's ahead, can't even see where you came from. And the more noise you take in, the thicker the fog gets. You start depending on somebody else's version of the story instead of trusting your own eyes. And that's how people get lost. But silence clears the fog. It don't happen instantly, but the moment you cut off the noise, you create space for your own voice to rise up. You finally hear yourself again. That's why silence is dangerous to toxicity, because the moment you stop absorbing chaos, the moment you stop feeding into arguments and drama, you start remembering who you are. And once you remember, you can't be manipulated the same way. Most people don't realize how much noise they carry every day. Arguments, text threads full of negativity, phone calls that leave you drained, thoughts replaying things you should have said, things you should have done differently. All that chatter is like static on a radio station. You can't hear the song because the interference is too loud. Silence is like turning the dial until the signal comes in clear. That's when you catch the rhythm again. I knew a young woman who spent years in a toxic relationship. She said the hardest part wasn't the yelling or the disrespect. It was how confused she became about herself. She couldn't tell if her feelings were valid anymore because every time she spoke up, she was told she was crazy, dramatic, or too sensitive. So she started believing it. Her self-worth shrunk. But one day she decided to stop engaging in the noise. She stopped replying to the arguments, stopped explaining herself, stopped defending every little action. At first she felt guilty, like she was doing something wrong. But with that silence came something she hadn't felt in years. Clarity. She told me for the first time I could actually hear my own thoughts again. And I realized I wasn't crazy at all. That's the power of silence. It gives you your voice back. It's science to this too. Studies show that quiet reflection, whether that's meditation, journaling, or just sitting alone, reduces stress, sharpens focus, and improves decision making. Why? Because your brain needs stillness to process. Constant conflict keeps your mind in survival mode, always on defense, always reacting. But silence lets your nervous system calm down. Let your mind shift from reaction to reflection. And reflection is where truth lives. It's in that stillness you start noticing patterns, connecting dots, recognizing cycles. You see the red flags you ignored before. You see how the same argument happens over and over with no growth. You see how much of yourself you've been giving away. Silence is the space that lets you put the puzzle together. And once the puzzle comes together, decisions get clear. That fog starts to lift. You realize what you need, what you deserve, and what you can't keep tolerating. Without silence, you'll keep spinning in circles, chasing answers in the noise. With silence, the answers rise up on their own. But silence ain't just about pulling away from somebody else's voice. It's about tuning into your own. When you're quiet, you start catching the small signals you've been ignoring. The way your chest tightens every time you hear their name, the way your energy dips when you see their text, the way you feel lighter on the days you don't hear from them. That's your intuition talking. And intuition speaks in whispers. You'll never hear it over all the shouting. That's why silence is so powerful. It amplifies the whispers until you can't ignore them anymore. Think about how athletes train. After a game, they watch film. They sit in silence. No crowd, no noise, just a tape. That's where they see the mistakes, the missed opportunities, the things they couldn't catch in the heat of the moment. Life works the same way. Toxic relationships are like being in the middle of a game. You're too busy reacting to see the bigger picture. Silence is you stepping back, reviewing the film, and once you review it, you move smarter. A lot of us run from silence because it feels uncomfortable. We don't want to sit with our own thoughts. We don't want to face the truth we already know deep down. So we keep filling the space with noise, scrolling, texting, arguing, distracting ourselves. But the truth is, the discomfort is where the healing starts. When you sit in silence long enough, the discomfort turns into clarity. It's like cleaning out a closet. You pull everything out, and at first it looks like a mess. But once you go through it piece by piece, you see what to keep and what to throw away. Silence is that process. And the crazy thing is, once you find clarity through silence, you can't go back to confusion. You can't unknow the truth. You can't unsee the patterns. You might still struggle. You might still feel tempted to engage, but something inside you has shifted. You've seen the road through the fog, and now you know there's a way out. That knowledge alone is freedom. I'll tell you from experience, people who master silence in toxic situations move different. They don't chase validation. They don't get pulled into proving themselves. They trust their instincts because they've trained themselves to listen. And when you trust yourself, you stop letting toxic people rewrite your reality. You stop letting them define your worth. You stop letting them cloud your vision. That's clarity. So when life feels heavy, when relationships got you twisted, when your mind feels cluttered, try silence, not as an escape, but as a strategy. Sit with yourself, journal, meditate, take a walk without your phone. Cut the noise and see what rises. At first it might feel strange, but give it time. Slowly, the fog clears. Slowly, the road appears. And when you can see the road, you can finally decide where to go. Because at the end of the day, silence isn't empty. Silence is full of answers. And those answers are what sets you free. Toxicity got a rhythm to it. It's not random, it's a cycle. And once you start paying attention, you see the same pattern play out over and over. Argument, apology, repeat. It might start small, maybe a slick comment, maybe some disrespect brushed off as a joke. You react, they blow up, voices rise, doors slam, energy shifts. Then comes the apology, sometimes real, sometimes fake, but just enough to keep you in place. And then, like clockwork, the next argument comes around and the cycle starts again. That loop can go on for months, years, even decades if you let it. You get stuck on that hamster wheel, running faster and faster, but going nowhere. That's how people lose time, lose joy, lose themselves. But silence has the power to break that loop. because toxic cycles feed off reaction. They depend on your participation. Without your voice, without your defense, without your energy, the pattern can't keep repeating the same way. Silence is you stepping off the wheel. And once you step off, the motion slows down. You stop fueling it. You stop being predictable, and the cycle loses its grip on you. Think about it like this. If you ever watch two people argue, it's like a dance. One steps forward, the other steps back. One raises their voice, the other matches it. One throws an insult, the other counters with theirs. Back and forth, step for step, until the music stops. But if one person just stops moving, the dance falls apart. You can't dance with someone who refuses to move. That's what silence does. It ruins the choreography of dysfunction. It's you saying, I'm not dancing to this song anymore. I knew a man who was stuck in that exact pattern. Every time his partner picked a fight, he felt like he had no choice but to respond. She'd accuse him of things he didn't do, bring up mistakes from years ago, and he'd defend himself for hours. It always ended the same way. She'd break down, apologize, promise to change. For a couple days, things would be calm, and he'd think maybe it's different this time. But soon enough, the cycle spun back around. One day, he decided to try something new. When the accusations came, when the yelling started, he stayed silent. No defense, no counterattack, no explanation, just silence. At first, she pushed harder because the cycle taught her to expect him to engage. But after a while, with no energy bouncing back, the fight fizzled out. And he realized something important. The cycle only lived as long as he kept feeding it. That's why silence is so powerful, because cycles need repetition to survive. They need the same reaction every time, like a script. And when you deviate from the script, the story falls apart. Silence rewrites the ending. Silence creates a plot twist. Silence is you saying, I'm not playing the role you cast me in anymore. And the moment you stop playing, the whole production falls apart. There's psychology behind this too. It's called pattern interruption. Human behavior runs on patterns, habits, routines, cycles. If you always react the same way, you reinforce the pattern. But if you change your response, even by doing nothing, you interrupt it. And once the pattern is interrupted, the brain is forced to process things differently. That's where transformation starts. Silence is one of the strongest forms of pattern interruption. Some people fear silence because they think it means giving up or letting the other person win. But silence doesn't mean surrender. It means strategy. It means you recognize the game being played and you refuse to play by the old rules. You stop answering the phone calls at 2 a.m. that only lead to fights. You stop responding to texts designed to provoke. You stop giving your time to conversations that go nowhere. That silence is you breaking out of the loop. It's you choosing peace over chaos. Imagine a hamster wheel. The hamster runs, the wheel spins, but the cage never changes. That's what life feels like in a toxic relationship. You moving nonstop, but never progressing. When you finally step off, the wheel keeps spinning for a second, but eventually it slows down and stops. That's how cycles end. Not with a loud explosion, not with some dramatic finale, but with the quiet decision to stop running. I knew a woman who finally found freedom through silence. Her partner had a pattern. Every time she confronted him about something serious, he twisted into a fight, make her feel guilty, and then come back with flowers and apologies. It kept her trapped for years. But then she stopped arguing. When he twisted her words, she didn't defend herself. When he tried to bait her into yelling, she stayed calm and quiet. When he tried to guilt her, she didn't respond. At first, it shook him because the script wasn't working anymore. But eventually, she realized that silence wasn't just breaking the cycle. It was giving her the space to walk away from it entirely. That's the power of silence. It's not only about stopping the cycle with them, it's about starting a new cycle with yourself. A cycle of peace, a cycle of focus, a cycle of self-respect. When you no longer invest your energy in dysfunction, you invest it in growth. You realize how much time you've been losing, how much potential you've been wasting, and you start pouring it into things that matter. That's how silence not only breaks the old loop, but builds a new path. And let's be clear, silence isn't passive. It takes strength. It takes discipline to hold back when every part of you wants to argue, to clap back, to prove your point. But that discipline is what makes silence powerful. Anybody can yell, anybody can argue, but it takes real control to stay quiet and let the noise pass. That control is what ends the cycle. See, toxic people don't expect silence. They expect you to react. They expect you to defend yourself, to cry, to yell, to chase their apology after. But when you take away that expectation, when you show them you don't need to participate in the chaos, you show them a different version of yourself, one they can't control. And once you step into that version, you never look at the cycle the same way again. So when you find yourself running on that hamster wheel, ask yourself, how long am I willing to keep going in circles? How much energy am I willing to waste on loops that lead nowhere? Because the truth is, the cycle won't break itself. You have to be the one to step off. And the first step is silence. It's the refusal to repeat the same argument, the same apology, the same pain. It's the quiet decision that says, this ends with me. And once you take that step, the wheel slows down, the cycle loses momentum, and for the first time, you see that you were never trapped in a cage, you just had to stop running. Respect is the foundation of everything. How you move, how you love, how you build, how you stand. When that foundation is cracked, when you let people chip away at it piece by piece, you don't even notice the damage until you wake up one day and barely recognize yourself. That's what happens in toxic relationships. You keep showing up to arguments with someone who refuses to honor your worth. And each time you do, you teach yourself quietly, subconsciously, that their disrespect is worth your time. You end up lowering your own value without even realizing it. That's why silence is more than just shutting down a fight. It's you drawing a line in the sand. It's you saying, I value myself too much to waste my words here. Words are powerful. They carry weight. They build, they destroy, they heal, they wound. But the mistake most people make is thinking every battle deserves their words. Truth is, when you argue with someone who constantly disrespects you, you're giving them free access to your power. You're putting your words, your currency into a bottomless pit. No matter how much you pour in, it never fills up. Silence is you cutting off that drain. It's you saying, I will not invest in a space that doesn't return my value. That's not avoidance, that's boundaries. And boundaries are one of the highest forms of self-respect. They say, I know my worth and I won't bargain it down for anyone. Toxic people hate boundaries because boundaries take away their control. When you argue back, when you engage, when you let them pull you into their storm, they still have a hold on you. But silence is freedom. Silence is the wall that protects your dignity. I remember a young man who lived this lesson. He was caught up with a partner who used words like weapons. Every day was a new attack. Insults, doubts, criticisms. At first, he fired back, trying to defend himself. He thought if he explained enough, proved enough, shouted loud enough, eventually she'd stop. But it never stopped. It only drained him. His goals fell behind, his health slipped, his confidence dropped. Then one day, he decided to try something different. He stopped responding. When the attacks came, he stayed quiet, not weak, not scared, just silent. And instead of wasting energy in battles he couldn't win, he redirected it. He poured it into his fitness, into his craft, into his vision. Months later, he told me the day I stopped arguing was the day I started respecting myself again. That's the kind of transformation silence creates. It shifts the focus from proving your worth to living it. Because here's the truth. Every argument you avoid isn't just about silence with them. It's about respect for you. It's teaching yourself how you deserve to be treated. The more you practice silence in the face of disrespect, the louder the message you send to your own spirit. I am worth peace. I am worth growth. I am worth more than this chaos. That's how self-respect is built. Not in one big declaration, but in 1,000 quiet choices. And people notice. The same folks who once thought they could disrespect you without consequence start to realize the access they had is gone. They notice that silence. They notice the boundary. They notice the change. And while they may not admit it, they feel it. Silence makes people reconsider how they approach you. It shifts the balance of power. Because silence is not emptiness, it's presence. It's saying I'm here, but I'm not here for that. When you argue with someone who constantly disrespects you, you step into their world. You fight on their terms, and every time you do, you shrink a little. You walk away questioning yourself, second-guessing your actions, doubting your own worth. But when you choose silence, you stay in your world. You protect your energy, your space, your identity. That's what boundaries are, the difference between living in chaos and living in clarity. It's not easy at first. Silence feels uncomfortable when you're used to defending yourself. You want to clap back to prove your point, to make sure you're heard. But the more you practice it, the more you realize silence isn't weakness, it's discipline, it's control, it's respect. It's the realization that your voice is too valuable to be wasted in places where it won't be honored. And the more you hold that line, the stronger your self-respect becomes. It's like building muscle. The first time you lift, it's heavy, your body shakes, your form is sloppy, you want to quit. But if you stay consistent, rep after rep, the strength shows up. Silence works the same way. Every time you hold your peace in the face of disrespect, you strengthen your self-respect, you get more comfortable with boundaries, you stop feeling guilty for not responding, you stop apologizing for protecting yourself. That growth shows up not just in your relationships, but in every area of your life. Because self-respect isn't just about how others treat you, it's about how you treat yourself. When you choose silence instead of chaos, you show yourself that your time, your energy, and your words are sacred. And when you start treating them as sacred, you stop settling, you stop chasing validation, you stop bending yourself into shapes to please people who will never appreciate it. You move differently, you stand taller, you attract better. I've seen it happen over and over. People think walking away or staying quiet makes them small, but the truth is, it makes them bigger. It makes them untouchable. It makes them magnetic. Because nothing is more powerful than a person who knows their worth and doesn't feel the need to prove it in every fight. That's real self-respect. And silence is the tool that builds it. So understand this. Silence is not the absence of action. Silence is the action. Silence is the statement. Silence is the standard you set for yourself. And once you set that standard, everything in your life starts aligning with it. The noise gets quieter, the respect gets louder, and the person you see in the mirror starts to look stronger, clearer, more confident. When you realize your silence is not avoidance but boundaries, when you finally embrace it as a tool of self-respect, your whole life shifts. Because the day you stop arguing with people who don't value you is the day you prove to yourself that you do. And that proof is the foundation of everything you're about to build. Freedom don't always come with fireworks and loud declarations. Sometimes freedom shows up in the quietest way possible, in the decision not to respond, not to explain, not to fight a battle that was never worth fighting. Silence is underestimated because people think it's passive, but the truth is silence is active. It's a choice, it's a discipline, it's a declaration. And when you're in something toxic, silence is what sets you free. It doesn't just shut down a heated moment, it opens the door to a whole different life. Because peace ain't about the absence of noise, peace is about the presence of self-control. Think about how many times you got dragged into the same argument, the same cycle, the same chaos, and walked away exhausted, drained, and no closer to peace than you were when it started. That's what toxicity does. It tricks you into thinking you're fighting for resolution when really you're just stuck in a loop. The noise keeps you distracted, keeps you invested, keeps you bound. Silence breaks those chains. Silence says, I don't have to keep doing this. I don't have to stay in this cage. I don't have to let this chaos define my days. Walking away in silence is more than leaving the room. It's saying, I choose me. I choose growth. I choose my future over this madness. There's power in that choice because it's not about them anymore. It's about you. Silence shifts the focus back to your spirit, your goals, your healing. It's the moment you stop living reactive and start living intentional. And that shift is where freedom begins. When you realize you don't have to respond to every insult, you don't have to engage every time someone tries to provoke you, don't have to explain your worth to people committed to misunderstanding it, that realization is liberating. You reclaim hours, days, years of energy you once wasted. I knew a woman who spent most of her 20s caught in a toxic relationship. Every day was chaos, yelling matches, emotional games, roller coaster highs and lows. She thought if she fought hard enough, argued long enough, explained deep enough, she could fix it. But nothing changed. What did change was her spirit. She got dimmer, smaller, more tired. One day she told me she didn't even recognize herself anymore. That's when she made the decision. No more arguments, no more trying to be heard by someone who refused to listen. She went silent. She stopped engaging, stopped explaining, stopped begging. And in that silence, she found space to hear her own voice again. She started journaling, meditating, working out, reconnecting with family and friends she had pushed away. She found her laughter again. Months later, she said, I didn't even realize how heavy I'd been carrying it until I set it down. That's the freedom silence brings. It gives you your life back. And freedom through silence ain't just personal, it's universal. There's research showing people who practice quiet reflection, whether it's meditation or time alone, have lower stress, better focus, and deeper happiness. It's not an accident. Silence gives your brain the room to reset, to heal, to organize the chaos. When you're constantly in noise, your body's in survival mode. always on edge, always ready to defend, always reacting. But when you embrace silence, your nervous system calms. You move from survival to creation. You stop living in the fight and start building the future. That's why silence isn't just about shutting people out. It's about letting yourself in. It's about finally hearing your own thoughts, your own dreams, your own vision without them being drowned out by someone else's negativity. And when you hear yourself clearly, you can start walking a different path, a path that's not built on fear or chaos, but on intention and growth. That's what real freedom looks like. Not just leaving the cage, but building a new world outside it. Walking away in silence is also about reclaiming your dignity. Because the truth is, arguing with someone who doesn't respect you chips away at your self-respect every time. You end up lowering yourself to meet them in the chaos. But silence lifts you out of that. Silence says, I don't have to prove myself here. My worth is not up for debate. That's a declaration of freedom in itself. Freedom from needing their validation. Freedom from trying to fix what refuses to be fixed. And once you taste that kind of freedom, it changes everything. You stop rushing to answer every call. You stop losing sleep over conversations that go nowhere. You stop feeling guilty for choosing peace over conflict. You start valuing your time, your space, your voice in a way you never did before. That's when you realize silence was never about them. It was about you becoming who you were always meant to be. Think about a bird in a cage. It might sing, it might move, but it's limited by the bars around it. That cage is like toxicity. It keeps you locked even when you don't realize it. But the moment the door opens, the bird doesn't have to scream its freedom, it just flies. That flight, that quiet, graceful motion is what silence feels like. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's powerful. It's fun, it's free. And here's the thing, silence doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you start caring differently. You care about yourself enough to stop engaging in battles that cost you your peace. You care about your future enough to stop wasting it on people who won't grow with you. You care about your spirit enough to protect it with boundaries. That kind of care is love, the real kind. And love is freedom. I've watched people transform completely once they embraced silence. People who once lived in constant conflict suddenly started glowing, creating, achieving. They took trips they'd been postponing. They built businesses they thought they didn't have energy for. They reconnected with passions they buried under all the noise, and every single one of them said the same thing. I didn't realize how much the arguments were holding me back until I stopped engaging. That's because silence isn't just the absence of chaos, it's the presence of possibility. It opens up space where new life can grow. So understand this, silence sets you free. It's not running away, it's walking forward. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not emptiness, it's fullness. It's choosing you over and over again until choosing you becomes natural. And when you consistently choose yourself over chaos, peace stops being something you chase and starts being something you live in. That's freedom. And freedom is the ultimate goal. Not freedom that somebody else hands you, not freedom that depends on another person changing, but freedom you claim for yourself through silence. Because in that silence, you step into power, into peace, into growth. And once you step there, you'll never want to go back. So remember, silence ain't weakness, it's wisdom, it's power, it's strategy. When the relationship is toxic, the best answer ain't in raising your voice, it's in raising your standards.